Oh, you're working from home? You can not get a paycheck, or you can report to the office.
Yeah, they did that whole resign thing.
I know, but if I'm working from home, I'm going to fuck off a lot of the time. That's why I never
And a lot of these
wanted
people
a work
move to
from home
different
job.
cities and different states to work remotely because they could.
And
So now
okay, so some employees were not doing diddly squat.
Question,
Some
Steve.
employees were doing their job, which required 3 hours a day. Now, were these employees being lazy because they were only working 3 hours a day? Yeah, some. Some were only working 3 hours a day because that's what it required to get their job done. And they might have been smarter and wanted to do more and assert themselves more, but they were actually told by their bosses, no, you do your job. Don't do my job. Don't do more than your job. Don't create problems for me. Just do
don't
your
get
job
special
and shut
training.
the fuck up.
Don't get
So,
special training to rock up to
yeah,
threaten the hierarchy or anything.
Nick and I were discussing this earlier. So, not all these underutilized employees are doing it because they're lazy. Some are just restricted. So we have all this turmoil. And okay, throw AI in. AI is a system disruptive factor. And how is it going to change things? I don't know. The managers are going to try and use AI, but in some ways, managers aren't smart enough to use AI in its best way. They're going to use it as a threat, but some of these people underneath them actually are smart enough that they know they're needed. They're actually held back. How's it going to turn out? I don't know. But this is great because the system is in turmoil.
Well, Steve, okay. I want to. So I work from home, and the result of working from home means that I work more than I used to when I was at the office by a lot. Now, I'm strange, and like I've kind of always been this way. But when I was working at an office, I noticed that there was a certain type, avoiding the word class here. There's a certain type of person who made it their business to be in everyone else's business. So, everyone's saying, oh, just go back to the office. That'll fix the productivity problem. Yeah, I'm not so sure of that. Now, look, there are pros and cons to offices. You send me home, I'm actually going to work. I'm going to get more done. I'm going to be more productive. Why? Because there's fewer busybodies busy bodying me at the office. Okay. You can use work from home as a perk like that. If you have somebody who's, they're an A performer, you can say, okay, look, you can go home. Now, federal government doesn't do that. And the reason for that is, and I think this is going to be more where we need to be focusing, most federal government jobs do not require significant intelligence. You're kind of getting there with your rant there earlier, Steve. Yeah, there's some people who, they're being held down. But there's a lot of people for whom that 3 hours of work is a full day's work. It isn't 8 hours of work because that is the speed they can work at.
True enough.
The federal government is a jobs program. It is.
Oh, yes. I'll agree with you there. So what happens when we remove this jobs program from the economy? And these people are not making money, spending it into the economy.
Well, do you want to know what a depression looks like? Because and the reason I say that is because these are people. we talk about IQ and the bell curve, and everyone loves talking about the, the plus 1, 2, 3 standard deviations, all the smart people. No. You need to focus on the 100 and lower, because they are half the population, and the number of jobs that they can do productively has been shrinking for years. AI is going to turn this up to 11. Okay. Okay, Tacticus. Tacticus brought up a comment, and I want to bring it up because he's
UBI.
actually okay. Tacticus, you said enter
Universal
UBI.
basic income.
I saw a tweet. I don't have it up for tonight because this was a couple weeks ago. But as Doge was getting started, people were starting to dig into the data. There was another Twitter person who actually built a database of all of the individual transactions where like USAID went and all that. Okay, published it. And what people started realizing is that the federal government is UBI. Okay.
Yep.
Like these people have, and I'm not just talking about, the government employees. I'm talking about the employees at all the grant receiving organizations, to work around YouTube's dislike of the acronym, right? So these grant receiving organizations will pay somebody $300,000 to $500,000 a year to sit there and be a grant machine. All they do is they plod through the documentation, plod through the government, the Byzantine government, agencies, and they get these grants, and that's their whole job, and they get paid lots of money to do it. But this doesn't require any particular intelligence. It just requires the ability to fill out forms, follow procedures, the kind of thing that I can teach anybody with an IQ of 90 to do. Follow a procedure, fill out a form. And now the kind of sad part of this is that the government side of the system had to be specifically set up so that these people could do this. Okay. It had to be set up so that it was easy to follow, proper forms, proper channels, et cetera, et cetera. And they did all that. And they did all that through the bureaucracy, not the congressional side, because Congress could never dream up something that inefficient. But it worked. And so what you're going to see over the next couple of years is, look, we've been talking about finances, depression. We've been talking about how that's coming. Well, the federal government alone is 2.5 million employees. It can probably be run everything it needs to do on 500,000, and that's being generous. Steve and I were talking after the show we did with my wife on Saturday, and we were talking about the airliner crash, the helicopter airliner collision, and we kind of noted that you don't see the NTSB in the news very often for a major scandal, finance scandal. And they tend to be pretty competent at their jobs, right? But it's not a lot of people there. The agency's I think it's like 2,000 people, and you could probably cut that in half, and they could still do their job competently. So there are and the Department of Transportation, FAA, NTSB, these are actually things that do follow under the constitutional ambit, particularly of interstate commerce, because it is truly interstate. And they actually tend to do a reasonably competent job. But there's not a lot of grift to be had in, say, NTSB accident investigations, right? So they don't become grift mills. Whereas things like USAID do.
The other, similar organizations. NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Yep.
Guys who inspect nuclear reactors. They're smart. There's not a lot of graft there. They just do their jobs. The air traffic controllers. Not a lot of controversy there. Highly competent people. Yes, occasionally there's mistakes. Okay. Even smart people, competent people make mistakes. There could be staffing shortages. Oh, that's caused by the bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, NTSB, they've put like 90 some proposals into the FAA to change things. FAA has not changed things. Wait, the FAA is a bureaucracy. They have political things and people pushing on them to see their side of things.
Yep.
They're not quite as immune. Can anybody political influence the NTSB? They'll tell them, take a hike. We're doing our investigation. We'll let you know when we're done, and we're not pulling any punches. So there are some government branches that are highly respectable. Generally, not a lot of money to be made by influencing them. There's not a lot of bureaucracy or political bullshit. They just do their job according to the rules. And also, it's pretty highly intelligent, trained, competent people in those organizations. But the more you move away from that into the touchy feely, like USA, there's nothing technical in there.
Not a thing.
Yeah, the more tendency it gets to be prone to inefficiency and corruption or bribery or just being a money sink.
Yeah, and I think that's where the risks of particularly UBI come in. Look, I don't think that we're going to continue to do UBI. It has been in all other experiments, it has been proven to be just a horrifically bad idea. Tactics actually dropped a comment in here. There's a conversation going on in the chat, and we're only pulling up bits of it. So shout out to the chat. You guys are on fire tonight. UBI is a bad idea. It's prepaying for performance with no guarantee of performance. Yeah, that's part of it. But also, like when you read about it, what people like Kelton, curse her name, Stephanie Kelton, have written about it. They're not even prepaying for performance. They're literally just saying we can, so we should. And their definition of can is mathematically unsound.
You said government has 2.5 million employees. Probably could get by with 500,000. Okay,
Yep.
well, I'm not going that far. Let's just say there's 1 million that are not needed and we could live without. Let's just say those people are unproductive or maybe even negatively productive. So they're not on UBI. They're on government basic income, GBI.
Yep.
How about we move them over to UBI? Wouldn't we be better off by taking them out so they can't fuck up what they're doing now? And they're not doing anything now. And let's move them to UBI so we're not completely depriving them of money so they can still survive and put their money into the economy. And we're pissing the money away paying them now. Are we any worse pissing away the money paying them for not doing anything since we're already doing that?
Probably not. It would only make sense though. Okay, so here's the deal. It would only make sense if you were paying them less than they made in the jobs they were doing. And they're going to squeal about that. Where I think the actual problem isn't with the government, because the government pay scales are pretty well defined. Like you can go look up, what a GS-14 is, and it'll rip off a number and okay. And there's a little bit of range. Like if you live in DC, you get a bump because DC is super expensive, or New York or something like that, but it's not much. A couple thousand a year. So the public government pay scales, they're not great and they're well defined, and you're just not going to break them. It's the grant grant receiving organizations, which is GROs, is what I'm going to call them, because the November golf Oscar term is not happy with YouTube. So grant receiving organizations, that's where the real money is. That's where you go how the game works in government. And there's a variation of this on the Republican side, the Republican conservative side too, and we can get into that. But how the game works is you go into government, you work there long enough to get your pension, which I think is 20 years. And you build up just incredible amount of experience with one specific little piece of the government. And then you get your pension and you leave and you go to the NGO. And the NGO, so like at the government after 20 years, you're probably GS 14, 15, you're making 75,000, I think. Don't quote me on that. Okay, you go to the NGO. The NGO pays you 300,000 a year. But they have to pay you because you're the one who knows everything about that little bit of that particular government bureaucracy. That's the payoff. It happens later. There's a variation of this that's done with okay, can't say that. You got the Mickeys. There's a variation of this that goes on where you're inside the DOD, for example, and you build up a fiefdom. You could either be civil or military side, doesn't matter. There's a grift for both sides. And then you go off to one of the defense contractors and they pay you tons of money and you get board seat. If you're like a general, you get like a seat at the board and, so the same thing exists over there too. Okay.
Hey, Plutarch.
Go ahead.
Have you ever thought about contacting Elon Musk, going to work for the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge?
I have. I'm probably not the right person for that on a technical skill sense. I don't have those analytics tooling skills.
Hey, but you just identified that the grants is what we have to go after next. I think you should get a job at Doge.
I like my job and it pays better. I'm not even kidding. And frankly, the young dudes who are doing it, Doge needs to move at a speed that it's a young man's game what they're doing, and I respect it and I support it. And there are people on, so it's not just the people in Doge. One of the things and I have seen this done. There was an account. Data Republican is her. That's her like screen name or display name. I forget what the handle is, but she has actually tweeted at Elon, and she might actually be the one that got him started on USAID or USAID, because she was pulling out all these grants and all of this stuff and going, here, did you see this and you see that, and I think what happened is she kind of twigged Elon, and then Elon took his brain trust of autists and said, here, go. And they went and they found. There's going to be more of this. But this is a public-private, like there are people who are not part of Doge who are helping out. So,
I know
we're getting off topic.
We are getting off topic.
Doge is so fucking destroyed now that even the libtards cannot push back and save it.
Well, one of the points that I was reading about earlier today was that Elon had to do this because, okay, we're in the evidence gathering stage now. There's going to be an arrest stage later, and people and if they don't get people, just everyday people behind this, it's going to look political, even if it's not. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I said. I think what they're doing is the right thing. I think how they're doing it is the right thing. I will help from the outside where I can. My concerns are probably more focused on the H-1B stuff, and that's going to have to wait a little while. There's some national security concerns about H-1B. There's some, there's some economic concerns about H-1B, all of that stuff. So that's for a later conversation.
Okay.
Right now,
Nick
they're
was
doing
trying
what
to
they
bring
need
us
to do.
back onto track here.
He
so
was. He was. Good.
come on, Nick, do your job. Bring us back on track.
All right. So how is AI gonna what does AI have to do with can AI eliminate can they use AI programs to see who's productive, who's not necessary, and on a government level? Are they actually doing that?
Don't know if they're actually doing that. I haven't seen anything about that. Could they? Again, remember, an AI is an inference engine. The AI is not going to come up with ways to measure productivity. It could only use methods of measuring productivity that we've come up with. And I'm not sure that they're okay. I have to be careful how I say this. There are very definitely low hanging fruit government employees who are doing absolutely nothing that the AI could look at and go, I see your emails. I see your, I see your lack of emails. I see your lack of forms filled out. Like clearly you're just, but okay. One of the things that I've been studying lately is topological thinking. Okay. Spin this around on its ear though. The thing that AI can't do is say, is what these this high productivity employee, answering lots of emails, filling out lots of forms, is what they're doing productive?
That's another question.
And I would argue the more important one.
I'm thinking of what was the book? Not a book, movie. Was it Office Space? With the TPS reports and all the
Yes, it
useless
was.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Well, but think about it that way. The AI cannot make a determination about the value of the work being done. Yeah, I can probably get an AI to say, okay, here's a set of selectors for performance. Now go find the low performers and high performers. But the AI isn't going to make a judgment call into whether or not what those high performers are doing is valuable work, is work, it's like,
And Seek Deep probably wouldn't be able to do that on that level.
yeah.
Whereas
Humans can't do that most of the time. Oh, he's busy all the time. He's involved in everything. And he's sending emails and he knows everybody. Yeah. Okay.
Steve, you
Is
just
he
described
doing
Office.
anything that's actually productive?
Well, Steve,
I don't
this
know.
goes back to something I wanted to ask you earlier. Okay, so we're going to send all these people back to the office. Okay, we've got the
useless
office
paper pushers.
Yeah, exactly. And the managers promote them first, right? So okay, so the busybodies come back to the office. They go back to their busybody ways, being pushing paper around, pushing emails around, making sure that the boss and the AI knows that they are hyper productive people, and they get promoted for being really good at appearing to work.
Okay.
Well, isn't that kind of what we have in our military too?
I
I'm not going to speak on
recognize
the
that.
military side,
But I'm
Very
going
decorated paper pals.
I'm going to argue the other side. It shows that you're imposing discipline because they have to get up in the morning, they have to get in their car, get their ass to work, and show up on time. Well, hopefully, and put in a
Steve. I don't know
be at work all the time. But the biggest benefit is the restaurants around the facility where they work will make money. because
Yeah,
these
I've
people
heard
go
that
out to
argument.
lunch.
Yeah.
The discipline thing, I have never seen a busybody have problem with discipline. In fact, the busybodies tend to be the most disciplined folks out there because the rules are all they know. It reminds me of a Thomas Sowell quote. Um, for the government, for the bureaucrat, the process is everything. The outcome is nothing. These are
That
people
sounds
for
like the modern church.
y-
Oh,
yes.
that's like your Presbyterians.
The
Oh, I
the
can't stand the useless bureaucrats,
well,
always by the rules,
but
but they can
it's
never fix a
everywhere.
damn problem.
It's
Oh,
everywhere.
infuriating.
Well, it's look, it's no less infuriating when you have to go to the DMV as when you encounter it in the church. It's the same everywhere because these people are incredibly disciplined. They know the process to follow. They know the correct prayers to say in the correct order to be granted absolution, right? It's for them, the process is everything, the outcome is nothing. Okay? And I want to hammer that home. So I don't think that bringing them to the office is going to change anything because they were already so hopelessly enamored of process that they're just going to do their process at the office instead of the at home. Now, can they
Yeah.
fart
Okay.
around more at home?
So
Yeah,
there's
sure,
a
but
phrase I learned. There's a phrase I learned. These type of people, I learned it from one of my mentors, and I heard it a lot when I was licentiate in the PCA and sometimes in the OPC. Just follow the process, trust the process, but there's no outcome. The outcome is just uselessness.
well, there is a place for a process. Um, Steve, you're an engineer. You're a mechanical engineer. When you were
Yeah.
a young buck engineer, your company that you worked for probably had a lot of processes in place, and those processes were designed to keep you from fucking up too badly, right?
True. But the process is subservient to the outcome. I didn't
That is
learn
how it
that until
should be.
later.
Yes.
I went in the consulting business, and biggest asshole boss I ever had, but smart guy. He said you can do any job in 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years. Uh, First of all, you not to the same level of detail, but figure out what the outcome is and the deadline. And that is what you're working towards. And then work your way towards that. So, outcome is paramount. The product, whatever you have to solve. And then you have to develop a process to get there with as much precision as time allows.
Well, yeah, and here's where I think the process train went off the rails. Processes serve a purpose. They are they're guardrails to keep you from screwing up too badly. In software, we use tests. We have these big test, things, and they're there to prevent us from making mistakes that are going to blow up the system. Now, you can still do it if it's a brand new thing and your new test didn't catch it. Okay, like things happen. But the point was that the process ensured the desired outcome. When we're talking about process for government, the government is always and everywhere unconcerned with the outcome of the process because now you all might remember, you know, my wife is not from the United States. I had to go through the process of importing my wife. That process involves a number of petitions. That's actually what the documents are called. They're petitions for, it's a petition for a work permit, a petition for green card. It's petitions for various visas. They are requests of the government. The government can at any moment say, no, we don't, something wrong on your paperwork. So the answer is no. Okay. Because the point of the whole thing is the process to the government. The government doesn't care if person A gets a green card and person B does not. It doesn't matter to them one way or the other. As long as the correct processes were followed, the outcome itself will be as it may. So, we can talk about, businesses where businesses have to deliver an outcome in most cases. And it's the departments of businesses that don't have to deliver outcomes that tend to do the worst, that tend to fall into the same trap. But the purpose of the government is in almost no cases to deliver an outcome, except, Steve, we were talking about the NTSB earlier. They have to deliver a report, a set of actions, recommended actions to take, right? The NTSB has an expected outcome of an investigation. Oh, look, the NTSB relatively competent at what they do. NRC, same thing. They are required to produce an outcome. In this particular case, reactors don't melt down. Oh, look, relatively competent at what they do. So I think the thing with government is we need to be focusing on agencies where the process is the point versus agencies where the outcome is the point. Did we just elucidate
that
something
is
here?
That's a great thing you said. That's the purpose. That's why I love our conversations. We were initially talking about, it's those agencies where there's really smart technical people, that they're the productive ones and we can trust them. Now, Plutarch introduced the idea that they are product outcome driven, not process driven, which might be a different aspect of why they're more trustworthy.
Well, here's another.
I think that's valid, and I think that's great insight.